A very good evening to everyone. At XLRI, we believe experiential learning is an important way of developing oneself. Towards this end, the GMP Leadership Committee, through such events as today's, invites stalwarts and distinguished achievers from all walks of life to interact with the students and help us in gaining a better and more informed perspective of life and business. XLRI Leadership Series, an initiative kick-started by a few spirited alumni of the XLRI GMP, is now a tradition at XLRI. On behalf of the GMP Leadership Committee, I welcome you all to the much anticipated 6th session of the season. I now invite Saurav Upadhyay to introduce and welcome our esteemed guest of today.
Thank you, Srini. Well, to begin with, I would like to call Shweta Nandini to please present a bouquet to Mr. Shivakumar. Thank you, Shweta. Mr. Shivakumar, or popularly known as Shiv, is the chairman and CEO of PepsiCo India Holdings Private Limited. An engineer from IIT Chennai and MBA from IIM Calcutta, Mr. Shivakumar has spent his last 8 years with Nokia before joining PepsiCo very recently. Before joining Nokia, he worked with consumer electronics maker Philips and top consumer goods firm Hindustan Lever. Mr. Shivakumar was the managing director before he took over as the Senior Vice President for India, Middle East and Africa. In a statement made by Ms. Indira Nui, Chairman and CEO of PepsiCo, she said, Shiv has a proven ability to take billion-dollar businesses to the next level by maximizing innovation, execution and collaboration. Mr. Shivakumar is essentially a marketer and a CEO. He has run more than 34 brands in his career over the past 2 decades. He's a growth manager, having grown every brand and business he has been associated with. He has a track record of building brands, developing people, and bringing creative and innovative business model solutions in all the categories and industries he's worked in. He's an avid reader, and he also frequently writes for business magazines. He regularly teaches at top B schools across the world. The achievements of Nokia India team under his guidance have been case studies at Harvard, ISB and Ivy School of Business. In the last 6 years, Nokia has become India's largest multinational and also the most trusted brand from 2007 to 2010, surpassing many household brands. Mr. Shivakumar is on the board of Godrej Consumer Products and is also the president of All India Management Association. He has received many awards. To name some, one of top 5 marketers in India in 2003, Brand Builder of the Year in 2008, Best CEO in 2009, and recently his alma mater, IIM Calcutta, awarded him with the Most Distinguished Alumnus Award in November 2011. He is one of the 9 alumni in the history of IIM Calcutta to receive this award. He follows sports and is a keen sportsman himself. Without further delay, I would like to call Mr. Shivakumar to take the evening forward. Sir.
Good evening. You guys are really tired at the end of a non-working day? Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much. You don't need to call me sir. Okay, so how many of you are marketing stream? Okay, general management with marketing program, yeah? Okay. How many are HR? Pure HR? Okay, good. I need to get a sense of whom I'm speaking with. First is I am from IIM Calcutta, which I know is not good news in this Calcutta, right? So every time I go out wherever, and I meet a guy from Excel or a girl from Excel, they were asking, "You're from IIM Calcutta?" I said, "Yeah." Who beat whom? Excel beat IIM Calcutta or you beat Excel? So this is the first question. I always say, "Hey guys, grow up, So students, okay? So I'm from that. I know you have a lot of traditions, and I was, the victim of one of them. So in my year, we came to the Excel IIM meet here, and then I used to, those days the games which we had were, I played cricket, I used to open, and then I played football for Cal. So the football match was tied 1-1 at half time, and I scored the second goal, and we won. Which was good news. I'm happy that I scored the goal. Okay, and I was walking back with my team, and we were only chatting. Suddenly I came next to the pond, and 2 guys from XLRI just caught me and threw me into the pond. I said, "Why is that?" And they said, "Anybody who does something, in this campus goes to a pond dunking." I don't know whether you still have the tradition, but I was absolutely shocked by it. Okay. So that's something which I went through, okay? The other connection of mine with your great institute is I'm on the board of XIM, okay, in Bhubaneswar, and Father Abraham is on the board too. So I meet Father Abraham every quarter, and I definitely get updated about what's happening here over tea, over dinner from Father Abraham, okay? That's the other. And I have been to XLRI many times, many times, okay, to fundamentally speak here. I remember many years ago, XLRI had invited, they sent a letter to the chairman of Hindustan Lever saying, "Can you send somebody to talk about brands and world-class brands?" Okay, and I came to speak here in one of your halls, and I remember somebody I admired a lot, Mr. Prakash Tandon, who was our first chairman of, Indian chairman of Hindustan Lever, was there in the audience, and it was an absolute privilege for me to present about world-class brands when he was in the audience. And you can never ever get more praise from an ex-chairman who tells you, "Well done, well done." So that was something. Then I also came here when you had a defense program a few years ago. Okay, I think 2009, you called me to speak about how the world is changing and what should we be doing. So I've come here a few times, and it's my pleasure to be here today. But before I stand before you, I have great expectations. Okay, great expectations. So I went to 2 of the grads from XLRI, Swati and the other boy, okay, who are in HR. Okay, so they're very excited that I was coming here. So I told them, look, I have a session which is half an hour of my speech, I think, and 45 minutes questions. They looked at me and said, in XLRI, nobody asks questions for 45 minutes. I said, okay. Then I said, I'm going to speak about brands and evolution of brands. And they looked at me and said, Shiv, you'll get a lot of tough questions. Are you sure you can answer them? So I said, okay, I'll try my best. So my reputation as the chairman and CEO of PepsiCo, with the HR team in PepsiCo, depends on your applause today and your feedback, okay? So if you guys really give me a thumbs down, then the HR team will say, hey, what kind of a boss do we have? Okay, so that's what I'm going to, really hold you accountable for. I'll speak, and then you have to give me your rating. So first, I'm going to speak about the history of brand, okay? And then how it evolved and what happened, okay? That's the first. How did branding start, fundamentally? 100 years ago, whenever it started, how did branding start? It started very funnily as a barter between villages. That's what it was. So imagine two villages, one called Jamshedpur and one called Ranchi. Okay? So Jamshedpur produced more rice than its citizens could eat. Your population today is 630,000. Maybe it was, let's say, 6,000 100 years ago. Okay? So Jamshedpur produced rice, and before long, all the rice which they produced was consumed by the 6,000 people. After that, the excess, what did they have to do? Similarly, Ranchi produced wheat, and it had 6,000 people there, and their consumers or their townships consumed all of the wheat they produced. So hence, Jamshedpur would tell Ranchi, you know what, I'll give you some Jamshedpur rice in return for some Ranchi wheat. That's how the concept of branding started. As barter between villages who had expanded the production of the good or the service well beyond the capacity of their population. Clear? Now take this concept and ask yourself, which was the world's first brand? Now that I told you this. No? Jamshedpuri rice, no? Which it was? It's not. Which was the world's first brand? Now that I told you this. So imagine a country which had more of a produce than they could partake or consume. What comes to your mind? Indian spices, we always, we have huge population which consume a lot. You have to think of a small country which produces a lot of something.
Scots. Willing with its roses.
Absolutely right. Please stand up, sir. An applause for a wonderful answer. The answer is whiskey and Scotch whiskey. Okay, so a country produces a lot of whiskey. You go to Scotland and put a spade down and whiskey comes. Okay? So they had too much, and they could only drink so much of it. So they exported it, and that's how the concept of Scotch whiskey started. And in a sense, that was the very first one. Okay, in a sense. So barter and Scotch whiskey. Remember. The second was what I call origin branding. Origin was a great source of branding. Darjeeling tea, champagne is an example. All airlines in the world flew the flag of the country. All airlines in the world. Air India, Singapore Airlines. You think about it. Pan American. Okay, everybody flew the country's flag, and that's on the tail of every airline. Emirates, Qantas. The name goes on and on. And what they were demonstrating was, we are from here. This is our origin, this is our branding. Similar thing with educational institutions. Oxford, XLRI, Jamshedpur, Xavier Institute, Bhubaneswar, IIM Calcutta, IIM Ahmedabad, Presidency College, Calcutta. Okay, origin matters a lot. And similarly, newspapers, the Boston Globe, the Atlanta Inquirer, okay, the Bombay Chronicle, okay, Deccan Herald, Enadu, whatever it is, representing the origin and where they started. So after barter, the next big thing was origin. And many a place today you still have these strong origin brands. Okay? So this was stage 2 of branding. Stage 3 of branding was, okay, we have the thing going, it's up and running, and how do we differentiate? Okay, and a classic thing which two industries did, which is tea and liquor. Okay, so tea and liquor are roughly the same commodity, right? The commodity stream is the same. Okay, so from the tea garden in Assam or the tea garden in Kenya, if you're getting a certain types of teas, you would ask yourself the question, what grades of tea are they? So people on the carton or the box would stick a yellow label, would stick a white label, would stick a green label or a red label and say, this is the quality parameter. Red, yellow, green, white stood for quality and price benchmarks. That's why even today, the same label branding continues. And that's exactly what happened to whiskies. To grade on quality and price, whiskies also did exactly the same. Labeling. Okay, so color coding became another way of identifying brands based on price and quality equation. So that's what they did. So this was the third. So origin was 2, barter was 1, labeling was the third. Okay, this is how branding started, or the history of branding. Okay. Next stage, this happened more from a consumer point of view in America and Europe around the 60s. When brands like Coca-Cola, Nescafe, Apple, McDonald's, Google were built. And they were built more from a global perspective. Okay, so this is what happened. So Nescafe was built by sourcing from South America. Coca-Cola was built because the American government gave them a lot of free plants at the end of World War II. That's why they built the brand. Apple came with a personal computer in the 1970s. McDonald's, Ray Kroc, fast food, changing trends. Google in the last 10 years. Okay, these all became global brands for some reason or the other. Okay, so this is what happened in stage 4. The true building of brands which had neither to do with either barter or origin or labeling. Okay, you can see that they had moved on. Fundamentally, a brand is a time-saving device. Fundamentally, a brand is a time-saving device. If you are a marketeer of any repute, if you are a marketeer who wants to be a good marketeer, understand this basic principle. Brands are fundamentally time-saving devices. Okay? Why do I say that? Okay, anything else?
Signaling.
Anything else?
Assurance of quality.
Correct. Anything else? Okay. When was the last time any of you went to a chemist to buy something? Anybody went to a chemist recently? Anyone? Anyone went to a chemist? No. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, when I say a brand is a time-saving device, think about it. When you go to the supermarket, you want to buy a shampoo, you see a Sunsilk, you see a Pantene, you see a Head and Shoulders, you see a Clinic All Clear. It's the familiar brand name. It takes you 1 second to pick it up. You go to the toothpaste aisle, you see Colgate, you see Pepsi, you see Clorox, okay? You see Promise or whoever it is, and say, okay, pick it up. Okay? Think about it. Contrast that with when you go to the chemist. When you go to the chemist, you give them your prescription, which your doctor has given you. So the chemist looks at the prescription and says, hold on. You look at the chemist shop, it's a sea of blue, green, white, whatever it is. Okay, there's some plastic buckets all over the place, some plastic slots. He comes back, you have 4 medicines your doctor has prescribed to you. You look at the 4 things he's put, 2 of them don't match. And you say, but my doctor has said this. And he says, no, it's the same thing, don't worry, take it and go. Why? Generic brand. Okay, so you match that. That process takes you infinitely more time than the process in the supermarket. So when you have generic branding, you are dependent on either the price or the retailer or his push to build your brand. When you have branding, you talk to the consumer directly. You take away the interface of the retailer and his power and push and craving for profit when you have true brand. Okay, so that's the difference between branding and generic stuff. That's why, to my mind, a brand is a time-saving device. That's a good example. You see the familiar Walmart, you say that's a cheap and cheerful store, I get cheap and cheerful goods here. That's what it signals. So if you want something cheap and cheerful, you walk into a Walmart and buy it quickly. Okay? Want a mobile phone? You think about it, that's a category, say okay, familiar brand, go pick it up. That's next. You want a chocolate? That's Cadbury's. And that's how Cadbury's has evolved. Okay? With 2 glasses of milk from 1905 to now. That's how Cadbury's has evolved. See each of the things. Slow and steady. Slow and steady. 1905, 10 years later, 8 years later, then 10 years later, 2 years later, 5 years later. So you'll see every 2 to 5 years what we call a restage of the brand. Why? Brands are keeping up with the new technologies in terms of printing, with the new typefaces which are coming to the world in terms of the printing press and television, XYZ. They keep keeping up in terms of modernity. That's why they need to keep their brand fresh. In today's world, that's categories very well. Okay? If in today's world you sell this, you have to really sell it as a gourmet special edition collection. Otherwise it won't work. People will say, this looks archaic, this looks like my great grandmother's chocolate, why would I buy it? I'm 25 years old. Why are they trying to sell me a 100-year-old offering? Okay? So that's how brands evolve. So whenever you think of brands, ask two things, and many marketers get this wrong. First is, a brand answers a fundamental question. The first question the brand answers is, who am I? Where does the brand answer that question?
On its cover, label.
It answers the question on the back of the bag. If you look at any category in the country or the world, the back of the bag answers the question, this brand telling you, who am I? So if it is Tropicana Apple, it tells you on the back of bag, who am I? In a social world, your Twitter comments tell people who you are. Your Facebook account tells people who you are. Who am I? Okay, somebody looks at your profile. Your LinkedIn profile tells people who you are. What you post, what you comment, XYZ, then builds your personality on top of that. So who am I is on the back of the bag for every single category. And every single brand has to answer the basic question. Who am I? First question. Okay? The next question which every brand answers in marketing terms is, what do I promise? Some brands answer that in the front of the bag. For example, if you were to look at a Sunsilk bag, Sunsilk black bag will tell you, for silky strength. For silky strength. That's the benefit I promise. So some brands have the benefit on the front of the bag. Most brands have benefit in their advertising, in their communication. The best brands have the back of the bag of who am I, the benefit in the front of the bag, and the advertising which gives the benefit. The best brands are consistent. Okay. If the brands end up putting the back of the bag and the variation of the back of the bag on the front of the bag, the consumers won't get why they should buy the brand. The benefit is the reason why a consumer buys a brand. Clear? Okay, so that's exactly how consumers process this information. And when you think of the way consumers process information, it's all down to a very simple concept called positioning. Who wrote about positioning?
Jack Trout.
Absolutely right, Trout and Rees. Okay, they wrote it in 1969 or so in an industrial magazine, not in a consumer magazine. That's the funny part. But it's a very powerful thought. All they said simply was this. They said in a consumer's mind, there is a ladder. There is a ladder of 7 rungs. Irrespective of the number of brands in a category, the consumer can at best remember 7 brands. After that, the forgetting happens. That's what they hypothesized, and they were right. On the top of the ladder, rung number 1 is what they call top of mind awareness of the category. Top of mind, okay? Awareness. Okay, then of course, market researchers massage the data to say consideration set, award set, all kinds of rubbish. Okay? But fundamentally, the consumer has a ladder. So you think about it, any category, if I were to say soap, you'll give me 7-8 names. I say shampoos, you'll give me 7-8 names. So the battle for marketeers is to be at the top of the ladder. That's when you own the category in many ways, if you're top of mind of the category. So the category is getting associated with you. If that is happening more than 50% of the time, you're owning the category. If that's not happening more than 50% of the time, then you're jostling to own that category with 2-3 others. So positioning is a battle for the mind. That's what they wrote, and they were absolutely right. Owning a piece of the consumer's mind. So the best example of this, I give to many people. Marlboro is an absolute great example of great positioning, great consistency, and outstanding marketing work since 1961. So now I'm talking to you 53 years later. The first point you need to know about Marlboro is, it was not a male brand. It was a female brand. Okay? This was the original Marlboro till 1961. Okay? Ivory tips for your lips and all this rubbish. Okay? The fact is, and this is a fact, women smoke to be like men. There are a lot of women in this room that kill me, but that's the truth. Okay? Women smoke to be like men. If you produce the women's cigarette for them, they're not going to smoke. They want to smoke a men's cigarette. The only women's cigarette which has been successful is Virginia Slims. Why? They promise the benefit of what they were looking for, which is what men crave for. You arrived, baby. That's what it is. That's what the Virginia Slims, promise was. You've come a long way, baby. It means you've progressed. And progress was at the heart of the alpha male culture. Okay, Virginia Slims was the only brand. Every other woman smoker, 9 out of 10 women smokers smoke the men's brand. Because they want to keep up with the Joneses, right? Why do they want to smoke a sissy women's cigarette? They don't want it. The reason they're smoking it is to tell the man, I'm your equal. Okay, and the last thing they want to tell him that I'm your equal is by smoking a sissy women's brand. Okay, so Marlboro was a sissy woman's brand in 1961. It came in a white pack. A white pack. And it was a brand with no future. It had less than 1% share of the market. Less than 1% share of the American market. So the company looked at it and said, this is not getting anywhere. So they told the agency, go back, come back to us and tell us, how do we grow Marlboro? The year is 1961. This story is written in David Arnold's book on brand management. So if in your library, there's a brand management by David Arnold, please go pick it up. I think it's on page 56. Read it very carefully. Okay? It's a great, lesson in brand management, and that's why I remember it, so carefully. So the agency went back, and they came back and said, hey, you know what? Scrap this woman's position. Scrap this woman's position. Won't work. Niche. At best, you'll get 1 to 1.5% share. At best, you'll give 2 share. This is not a long-term proposition. So the clients, they said, fine, very good. Go back and come back and tell us, what should we do to make it a big, large brand? They said, fine. They went back, they changed the packaging. Marlboro was the first, how many smokers here? What's common to 80% of cigarette packaging? Any idea? They're all smokers. Huh? That's a cacophony of response, I can't hear it. Statutory Act. Okay. The one thing common to 80% of cigarettes is a dash of red in cigarette packaging. The color red. 80% of cigarette packs have it. It's funny that most smokers don't pick it up. And the whole point was, it was danger. It signaled adventure. It signaled, pick me up. I'm for you kind of a thing. So what they did was, they moved from a pristine white packaging to a bold red and blue packaging, which is the new model. Okay? Yeah? Red, white, blue, black, whatever you call it. They moved to that. They bought that and said, this is a new packaging. To go with this new packaging, we want to symbolize the type of man who would smoke this brand. And he's the cowboy. Because men smoke cigarettes to feel machismo, to feel macho. Okay? And that's why we believe that the cigarette's craving is one of machismo. And we want to position it like this. So the client side looked at it, woman's cigarette, going exactly the opposite direction. Cowboy. So, what happens in most companies is, most marketing teams are what I call data rich and insight poor. They have lots of data, they don't know what to do with it. They have zero insight. 90% of marketers are like that. They don't think deeply about the insight as to why this brand is the best choice for the person. So they said, tough thing, cowboy, are you sure, etc. And somebody, so let me call him, an MBA from IIM Calcutta. An MBA from IIM Calcutta as a brand manager. And he says, hey, you know what, this is about cowboys. How many cowboys are there in America? So the agency explains to him, dear IIM Cal MBA, this is not about selling to cowboys. This is about selling the promise of machismo, which is very different. He says, no, I don't agree with you. Go and check and come back and tell me how many cowboys are there in America. 1961. So the agency, because the client pays the bill, and the client is from IIM Calcutta, says, okay, I'll go back. He goes back, does this work. 2-3 weeks later, he comes back to a meeting and says, Mr. IIM Calcutta brand manager, there are 269 cowboys in America. I told you With 269 consumers, what volume will we have? Again, this guy says, dear, I am Calcutta MBA. It is not, we are not selling to cowboys. This is about machismo. It's a great proposition. So finally, the client says, because they are running out of time, they don't know what to do, they say, okay, let's run this campaign. And here in David Arnold's book, they ran the campaign with the following principles in mind. They said, Marlboro should be a brand which men are proud to carry and put on the bar table when they go to the bar. Equally, Marlboro should be a brand which symbolizes the man that women are comfortable. Think about this. Women are comfortable, not alienating. So you put your cigarette pack on the table and then you look at the wrong guy, the woman says, forget it, I don't want this. Then they said, Marlboro will always be shown with a horse and a cowboy. And the campaign changes will come to the vista of Marlboro country. That's how we'll build this great brand with its bigness, which is what that's about. They put that. These are the 4 conditions. If you go back to David Arnold's book, 1961. 53 years later, they're still following. Okay? Now what happened? Marlboro became a market leader in every single country it was launched. It's still a market leader. Marlboro became a market leader in China, where there are no cowboys. Think of the Ann Calcutta brand manager. Marlboro became a brand leader in Singapore, where there are no horses. Think about it. So many a time, marketeers miss the fundamental point of why the brand exists. It is not the quantitative aspect of counting how many consumers are there. It is asking yourself the question, what's the benefit and the promise I really deliver to this wide audience? And Marlboro is the best example of that. Been successful, 53 years, market leader. Okay? So come to Marlboro country, consistently there. What I told you, smoking movements, will change the smoking movements in the vista of the Marlboro country. Look at that. Something written in 1961, you can see that playing out. Of course, every great brand also makes mistakes. Marlboro Light, Marlboro something else, etc. The moment you say that, are you a light machismo now? Think about it. Fundamentally, it clashes. But for whatever set of reasons, brand managers and marketing managers make these mistakes from time to time. If you're really about machismo, you'll knock that off. You'll have to find a different way of saying it. Okay, not to say it's a light product. You know? I want to feel good about it, right? So that's come to where the flavor is, come to Marlboro country. Look at the vistas. Look at the cowboy and the horse, and look at how Marlboro country is shown. Okay, it's grander, it's big. So on the positioning thing, this is what we see. If you say coffee, it's almost certainly Xerox. It's a verb, it's a noun, it's a brand. Same thing with overnight, FedEx, Fred Smith, tissue, Kleenex, instant noodles, good to eat, fast to cook, Maggie, freshness, Lidl, okay, rage of the country from 1971, confidence was about close-up, and social is Facebook. If you are in this exalted space, you've really unlocked growth big time. Really unlocked growth big time. And every time you advertise, the whole category grows. Okay? It used to happen in Dalda. Vanaspati was equivalent to Dalda. The more any competitor advertised, Dalda would grow. The more you advertise Vanaspati, people would say, yeah, the category means Vanaspati, let's grow. Okay, that's what happens when you own this. Okay? Next, India is a hyper-competitive market. Every category in India has more than 200 brands. Every category, more than 200 brands. You name the category. Soap, shampoos, oils, toothpaste, any brand, any category you can think of. You have more than 200 brands. It's an absolute hyper-competitive category. Okay. To survive in India is absolutely a very difficult task. The concept of brand long-term success is to maintain consistency, yet evolve to stay fresh. And that's the challenge with brands. People want to pick the familiar, but they want you to add something new. When you add completely something new, people say, hey, that's not my product. That's not the brand I'm familiar with. It's very much like yourself as a brand. Very much like you. You're a brand. You have a certain construct and how people look at you, how your friends look at you. When you behave differently from that construct, then your friends tell you, hey, you're behaving differently, what's happening? What's wrong with you today? That's exactly the same with brands. People expect a certain consistency, but want the modernity of innovation. Okay? People expect you to be rooted at your core as a person, but yet want you to progress. It's the same analogy. Think of you as a brand and your relationship with brands. It's virtually the same. Okay? Let's look at logos as an example. Logo is a great example of where you start and how you modernize it over time to make it contemporary and new. That's IBM. See where the IBM logo was. This was the IBM logo. Next we went to this. Looks like the Singapore whatever you call it. Went to this. Look at that, international business machines. Then this is where they got the first seeds of a long-term looking brand logo. Next this, then that, and they're roughly stuck to that for the last 40 years. Okay, so from 1886 to now, they've had about 8 changes or 7 changes. Okay, they've kept it contemporary, moved it along. So this is ideal. That's Ford. Look at the Ford Motor Company, 1903, before the Model T was launched. Okay, 1909, 1912. Virtually in 1912, they had come to what they wanted of Ford, and that's been roughly consistent now. The way they've written Ford, they've added a dash of blue as a background. Okay, and kept it contemporary time and again, right through the period. So 1903, virtually 110 years. That's Nokia. Okay, 1865. That time they were selling rubber boots and paper and all kinds of things. Then they moved along. 1998 is roughly when technology happened. All the tech products. And then they became the big bold blue Nokia. Okay, 145 years old. Microsoft. Something which all of you know. That's how Microsoft started. See, it's a word. That's where it is today. Kodak, no longer there. That's how Kodak was. Eastman Kodak Company, EKC. That's what it was. Then Kodak, freeze it, go. That's Pepsi. PepsiCo 1898. And that's the new Pepsi today, which we've launched, I think, in December or Jan. That's how it's about. They're always trying to be consistent, yet more. So, one part is the logo itself and how you communicate with consumers and how you tell them, which is the who am I question, how do I learn? Okay? The second is design and packaging evolution. To keep up to date with modernity, the sensory element of a brand is very important. The sensory element of a brand comes from packaging. Okay? It comes from fragrance, for example. That's packaging. We throw a lot of sensory into this when we show fresh apples here. Okay, if you showed apples with drops of water on them, it cues to you it's fresh. You slice the apple and show it pure white, it shows to you a great apple. Okay, then we throw in all the cues to say apple, apple, apple. Okay, the design sensory. The next thing, when we open it, consumers smell it, you have to get the apple cues. Okay, then you pour it, you drink it, you have to get the apple. That's all. So you go to buy any product, your mother buys a product, your sister buys a product, your aunt buys a product, whoever it is. Consumers always go through that journey. Tactile. They look at it. How does it look to me? Looks good. How does it smell to me? Great. How do I drink it? Does it taste good? That's the evaluation process. The sensory journey everybody goes through. Whatever type of product. Of course, in electronics and other products, there's no sense element. There's a visual element, there's a touch and feel element. There's no smell element. So much so that Folgers coffee, in the old days, I think when they were part of Procter, etc., to cue that they had great coffee, you know what they would do? They would actually spray the inside of the cap with coffee. They would spray the inside of the cap with coffee. So when you open that, naturally the release of the aroma was there. So there are many tricks people do to do this. When you have a taste product which needs a particular sensory appeal, toothpaste, foam in your mouth is a huge sensory appeal. mint in the Colgate toothpaste is a slice of coal which nobody else can replicate. Okay, so the more it foams, the funny thing is you think it cleans well. Because that's the sensory cue, you associate foam with cleansing. When a housewife or a maid scrubs clothes with a detergent, the more foam she sees, the more she feels that her effort is rewarded. That's how she looks at it. Okay? She scrubs, effort is rewarded. And when she's scrubbing, and if that foam actually gives or has some fragrance, then she feels that it's even better. Okay? So those are the sensory cues which people look for. So this is design and packaging evolution, which I want to take you through some of the categories and how they go. That's television. If you look at televisions 10-15 years ago, that's what you would have seen, which is classically called the CRT. Okay? The CRT television. Television today is like that. And if you went and saw the latest television from Sony and Samsung, they would be extremely slim, sleek, thin, and they would be virtually like paintings in the living room of a household. That's sensory and design being that important. Okay? And one of the first people who caught it, going back to who am I and what do I do and what do I promise, was actually Oneida. When they said, neighbors envy, owners pride, that's exactly what they were doing. But unfortunately for them, neighbors envy, owners pride, they didn't move to the new technology of slim televisions. As a result of it, that promise is no longer valid because somebody else is slimmer and somebody else is much better in design. Okay, so this is what televisions did. Next, running shoes. Look at the evolution in running shoes. That's what Phil Knight developed for Nike years ago. Okay, that's where it started. And see how it's evolved today. Now, there's so much technology in it, in terms of weight, in terms of color, in terms of fluorescence, in terms of tracking something, in terms of sensors, in terms of telling you the number of steps you've taken, number of kilometers you've run. A shoe has gone away from being a functional shoe to something far more utilitarian. And this is what is happening in most categories. We are moving from what I call function to lots of utilities. It is happening with taps, it's happening with showers, it's happening with everything you see around you. Pure functional products are no longer, biting. You need functionality with the sensory. Okay, so that's the other big example. Take one car, Honda City. That's how the Honda City has evolved over the last 10 years. See where it started. It looks virtually like a Maruti 800. And see where it is today. Okay, huge sensory. Because cars are bought as a personality statement. Cars are not bought for functionality. Watches are not bought to tell time. Watches are bought to tell you whether you arrived or not. Okay, there is a role for functionality, but there is a bigger role for the emotional space of sensory. Brand extension. Always the challenge. Where is my brand? How can I extend it? Okay, always the challenge. Okay, you also have a challenge. Correct? You have to decide, am I going to major in marketing? Am I going to major in finance? Am I going to major in HR? Most people in most business schools take marketing because they don't want to do finance. That's the reason they take marketing. They think marketing is about words, it's qualitative, it's easy. Marketing is possibly one of the toughest disciplines because it can be 0 or 1. There are no shades, it's binary. Either you get it right with the consumer or you get it horribly wrong with the consumer. Every other discipline has a certain structure. Accountancy has a structure of double entry bookkeeping developed in Italy in the 1400s. Okay? Physics has a structure. Economics has a structure. Marketing, no. Marketing is equal part art, equal part science. And that's why it's so difficult. Okay? So brand extension. Let's look at examples. These are two of the best I can give you. Vaseline. Vaseline petroleum jelly was around for a number of years. And in the 80s they used to advertise Vaseline as it can do 101 things. That used to be Vaseline's advertising. But people said, yeah, fine. As long as you put those 101 benefits in this lousy looking pack, with this lousy looking petroleum jelly and this blue label, we're not going to buy it. The promise of Vaseline is health. And that's what you need to think about. Go back to what I told you about Marlboro. The heart of Marlboro is machismo. The heart of Vaseline is great health, skin health. Then you say, okay, now what can I do with that core of the brand called skin health? And then suddenly you see a very different range of products. Suddenly the brand, from being constrained by its packaging and format, is now a very different, vibrant billion-dollar brand. Same thing with Dove. Dove started as 1/4 moisturizing cream for battle wounds. When people on the front line were injured, cuts, wounds, etc., then the nurse would put this with 1/4 moisturizing cream because it would soothe that cut. Okay, and that's when it moved to a bathing bar, which was 1/4 moisturizing cream. They took that 1/4 moisturizing cream as the core and DNA of the brand and said, where all does it have application? What can we do? And suddenly you see a very different brand, another billion-dollar brand. When you are doing these extensions, you have to be clear. Sometimes you can take a brand into new categories, sometimes you cannot. In my experience, hair brands find it very difficult to move from hair to skin. Very difficult. Sunsilk's tried it, failed. Pantene's tried it, failed. Fructis tried it, failed. Very difficult. If you're a core hair care brand, it's very difficult for you to go to skin. On the other hand, if you're a core skincare brand, it's very easy for you to go to hair. So sometimes being in a category boxes you. Okay, that's the lesson of the hair care and the skin care analogy that I can give you. So you really ask yourself, is something limiting my brand in this category? Okay, hair and skin is great examples of that. Look at Colgate. Where it started? Okay, any idea why Colgate is called Colgate Dental Cream? Anyone?
Because when it started, it used to be used as a hair cream in some part of.
Wild answer but not right. Why is it called Colgate Dental Cream? You see, you're buying it every day, you're buying it every month. You ever ask this question? Okay, now let's go back. Let's look at the definition. Cream. What does cream mean? Where would cream come in? Which packaging format would cream come in? Tubes? Cans, absolutely right. In the early days of toothpaste used to come in cans. And that's why it was called Colgate Dental Cream. So people would scoop it out, do that, put it back. That's why they still continue to call it cream. Okay? No longer the ribbon. Ideally, you should have been calling it Colgate Dental Ribbon or something. Okay? But where it started was the packaging format constrained the brand name. But they've gone. Now look at what Colgate has. You have sensitive teeth, I have a sensitive product for you. You have many teeth problems, I have a total product for you. You want strong teeth, I have a strong product for you. You want freshness in your toothpaste, I have a fresh product for you. Okay, you want herbal benefit, I have a herbal for you. They have tried to occupy as many of the problems in your mouth as possible. That's what they've done. Okay, 12, 15. But herein lies the challenge. When you vary it extensively, it's confusing for consumers. Extremely confusing. Okay, so let me give you an example of a competitor of mine, which is Pantene. In the year 2001, Pantene shampoo had 72 variants of shampoo. There are no 72 variants of hair in the world. Think about it. Why? Every new person who comes in adds 3 new variants. Nobody cuts variants. So one of the fundamental rules of good marketing is, if I add a variant, I must delete a variant. If you believe in that discipline, you'll get it right. Go back to what I said. A brand is a time-saving device. Remember I said that? If you see 72 variants in front of you, what happens in your head? Absolutely, you're not saving time anymore. You're confused beyond your wits. Okay, that's why you need to be very clear as to how you play this. Okay? Varianting can both be a plus and a huge negative. House brand. How do house brands do it? A typical house brand would be Godrej. A typical house brand would be Tata's. A typical house brand would be Birla's. Okay? Look at Godrej. So they have Godrej appliances, they have Godrej security solutions, they have Godrej furniture, Godrej batteries, Godrej chemicals, precision systems, real estate, insecticides, and FMCG. So you stretch it. So the house brand brings a lot of value. And typically house brands, the biggest value they bring is trust. That's the first thing they bring. The The bigger the brand, the bigger the trust. Tata is ultimate trusted brand. Godrej is a huge trusted brand. Birla is a trusted brand. So if you are looking at what I call a conglomerate brand like this, so it stretches many categories. Okay, you have to aim for trust. All the brand work you do and all the stuff you do, you have to aim for trust. That's why if you look at it, the biggest housing projects which are going well in terms of people saying, I trust you, are properties from Tata and Godrej. Because people are saying, I won't be cheated. I know there's a reputation, there's a trademark and a trust mark that I can trust. Okay, that's why Godrej properties do well. That's why Tata properties do well. Okay, because people have that inherent trust that they won't be cheated. Okay, so at the heart of a conglomerate brand or a big house brand is trust, and that's the only thing you can leverage. So finally, in summary, we've taken I think about 35-40 minutes. Okay, in summary, I talked about the branding history. Branding first started as a barterage, then moved to origin, then moved to classic branding. Okay, that period took about 100 years or whatever it was. Second, fundamentally, all great brands are time-saving devices. If you think of that utility which you provide to the consumer, then you will run your brand very differently. You will not confuse your consumer. You will very clearly signal who you are on the back of the pack. You will very clearly signal what the benefit is on the front of the pack. You will clearly amplify the benefit in your advertising. Great brands have great simplicity. Great brands are not confused. Their brand managers might be confused. Their marketing managers might be confused. Their CEOs might be confused. But great brands have great simplicity. That's what makes them great. Okay? Third, you have to be consistent about the core values of your brand, yet evolve and change to keep in tune with modern society. Okay? Typeface is one example. I showed you how brands IBM was, how PepsiCo was, etc. Okay? Equally, as you go through this change, sensory appeal and design sensibility is a very important thing to build a brand. Okay? It cues to people something very different. So ask yourself, if I have a brand, how many of the 5 senses can I really titillate? Can I really maximize? The taste, the this, the that, etc. And consumers really, look at brands and categories very differently. For example, there are some categories, if you operate in a category, you cannot move out of that because of the success in that category. Healthcare is a great example. Okay? On the other hand, skin gives you far more latitude to move across categories. And the best brands play to the core, which is what I mentioned, their DNA, okay, the values they stand for. The best example I can give you before I conclude is Ponds. Ponds is a fantastic brand. A brand built over years, a brand built by Cheeseborough Ponds. In the year 1984, Ponds, launched in this country soaps. Okay, huge success, premium soaps, dramatic success. They went to market leadership in premium soaps. They made the living daylights out of Hindustan Unilever. Okay, then Ponds became a little greedy, and they thought they could walk on water. So they extended to toothpaste. Ponds into toothpaste. Okay? When they extended to toothpaste, I was a young brand manager 20 odd years ago in toothpaste. Okay? So we had some brands in Hindustan Unilever. We had to react. And in a company, the sales guys are the kings. Okay? The regional head of North, South, East. They are the kings because they deliver the volume in the business. So they called my boss and said, you know what, Ponds is launching toothpaste. Arun, we believe we need to react. We'll send you a bill. Can you please approve it? We want to do display contest, we want to do sampling, etc. The bill those days, 25 years ago, was 2 crores of rupees. So equivalent to today would be some 30-40 crores. Not small change. Okay, so my boss called me and said, Shiv, what do you think we should do? I said, you know what? Why don't we check with consumers whether this concept is valid of Ponds going to toothpaste? He said, yeah. Before we spend the money or before we give permission to spend the money. He said, okay. So he called the regional managers, big burly guys, very high in the hierarchy. I'm a humble junior brand manager, high in the hierarchy. And he tells them, you know what guys, we're not going to react now. Shiv is going to do some consumer work and we'll come back in 2-3 weeks and we'll tell you. What do you think they said? Huh?
Not witty.
Okay, they said, they said something worse. They said, Arun, Ponds has hammered us in soaps. Are you trusting this twit of a brand manager to tell you anything? They hammered us in soaps. Why do you logically believe that they won't hammer us in toothpaste? They've done a great job in soaps. Haven't we lost share? Okay? Don't listen to your brand manager. Okay? Give us the money and let's get going. So Arun came to me and said, what do you think, sir? I said, hold on, Arun. We agreed we'll do this consumer thing. Here's a valuable lesson. We asked a fundamental question when we sat down and brainstormed. What is the heart of Ponds? In which geography is Ponds the strongest in this country? Where do you think it is the strongest in this country, even today? South geography. Where in South? Where in Tamil Nadu? Where in Chennai? Tambaram, Tinaga, what else? Who's from Chennai here? Okay. Now, if you really know your brand, you should answer. Absolutely right. 110%. That's the question we ask. Where is Ponds the strongest in this country? Because remember, when you launch variants, okay, where the loyalty is the highest, people tend to try it. That's the logic. We said Mylapore is one. So we went and did a wonderful focus group in Mylapore. 8 ladies. Die-hard Ponds, this thing. They have always thought that, after God, Ponds was the next best thing. The whole of Mylapore. Okay, here are these 8 ladies sitting. And here's this market researcher, Revati, wonderful lady. Fantastic market researcher, one of the best I've met in my life. She puts the Ponds, toothpaste and toothbrush in the pink pack, floral motif, etc. all that on the table. And they're going around. Okay, Revati is doing the research, they're going around, etc. Everybody saying, wow, it's fantastic, I like it, etc. Why the hardcore users of Ponds? They love it. You give anything from Ponds, they will want to try it. Discussion is going and my heart is sinking because I'm seeing 2 crores going out of my budget. And my heart is sinking with every minute. And at one point of time, I thought after 45 minutes, I should get up and walk out saying, okay, this is real. But something made me stay to the end. Okay? So I stayed, and the answer to the puzzle came in the last 5 minutes of the focus group. The whole focus group was over for 90 minutes. And then Revati asked them a simple question. She said, okay, can you each of you summarize how you feel about this? Lady number 1, great. Ponds is introducing toothpaste. Great, I love it. Second lady, similar stuff. Third lady, similar stuff. Fourth lady. 6 ladies said that. The 7th lady unlocked the real answer, the challenge that I was facing. She looked at everybody and said, I know that we are all Ponds users. We are all excited by this. But you know what? And she said this in wonderful Tamil. She said, you know what? When I think of Ponds, I think of smell. Toothpaste is taste. In my mind, smell and taste don't match. I said, wow, that's the one answer I was looking for at the end of 90 minutes. I ran out of the room. I was so excited as a brand manager. I was so excited. I ran out of the room, called Arun. I said, Arun, don't do anything. Ponds will die. He said, why do you say that, Shiv? I said, a consumer has told me the truth that we've been searching for, Arun. She told me Ponds is about smell and not taste. And that's why all the extensions they have done in smell like soaps have been brilliant successes. Because it was the core of the brand. Taste is completely different and the consumer rejected. Arun said, Shiv, it is so simple. Why didn't we think of it? I said, consumers tell you the truth. So Arun called the 4 RGMs and said, guys, we're not going to do anything. 0. You can do what you want. And again, the guy said, you want to trust your twit of a brand manager? He's telling you this one statement. You want to believe him? Arun said, yes. I'm not believing Shiv. I'm believing the consumer. What do you think happened after that? Ponds toothpaste died in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Ponds toothbrushes died in 3 weeks. On the back of that, Ponds had many other innovations. Batteries, sanitary napkins, baby range. As long as Ponds would maximize fragrance, they would win. The moment they went anywhere else, they lost. Okay, so brands have core values which consumers associate. Don't try to stretch a brand beyond its core value. That's what it is. Okay, so those are the lessons that I had for you. Thank you very much. I'm more than happy to answer any of the questions or thoughts or comments.
Sir, I want to ask you a question.
Where are you speaking?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sir, why do you force me to drink the same Tropicana as my grandmother? And what are my choices?
Why am I? Say.
Why do you force me to drink the same Tropicana as my grandmother does?
I didn't understand the question. Just can you elaborate?
Where are my choices?
What are?
Where are my choices?
Okay, the best guy to answer that is actually sitting here. Do you want to answer that? My grandmother of Tropicana is sitting here. You know why I bought this front row is all PepsiCo. You know why I bought them here? In case you didn't clap, these guys would have clapped for me. Okay? So answer that first.
I'm actually not the brand manager for Tropicana, but I work on the juice team. I work on slides. If I get your question correctly, what you're asking is why is Tropicana the same for your grandmother and for you? See, particularly with Tropicana, I think it stands for it's the world's #1 juice brand. It stands for everything that is honest and truthful about fruit and fruit drinks. It sources from the goodness of fruit, and hence the goodness of fruit won't be different from what it is for your grandmother or for you, and that's pretty much essentially why Tropicana is the same for everyone.
Okay. So let me build on that. For any great brand, okay, for any great brand, there is a heart of which is consistent. For example, you take witty that I'm having. Is this product the same for a 10-year-old as well as a 60-year-old? Yes, because the solution it provides is the same for everybody. I have a clogged nose, I buy it, I do that, it's over. Okay. Now why does it have a keychain? So that you don't lose it. Okay, otherwise it can get lost. That's a core. Similarly, if the heart of Tropicana it's a fruit drink. Okay, so real fruit and authentic fruit is its core. So, and the varianting and the appeal to different target segments happens through the type of fruit. It's quite likely, for example, we know, in the south of India, Goa sells well. Somewhere else, pineapple might sell well. To the young people, maybe a lychee will sell well. Okay, so the targeting to the consumer group happens with the variants. Okay, the more up-to-date and modern the variant, that's what it is. Okay, let me give you a true story and a very good example of great targeting. After we finished from IIM Calcutta, the Lousy Institute across the road. After we finished from there, I was working in Chennai, and I had a friend called Vidya Sagar. We used to call him Jimmy. He went and joined Nikita. Okay, he joined Nikita Shah as a brand manager, straight out of campus. Now remember, straight out of campus, the holy grail of jobs is brand management. Because everybody thinks brand management is intellectual. Sales is a bit of a pain to do. Why do you need to go outlet to outlet? But the greatest marketers are outstanding sales guys because they understand the consumer and customer. So here he is in Nikita Shah. He's worked with Nikita Shah for 7-8 months. He comes to Chennai on some visit and he comes to stay with me. I've got a small chamari kind of a thing and he comes to stay with me. So I'm very eager and I asked, hey Jimmy, how's brand management? He said, simple shit, cracked it. I said, boss, 6 months in the job, you cracked brand management. He said, yeah, very simple. I said, okay, tell me how. He says, look, I said kitchenette. I said, yeah, I agree. So let me tell you all the segmentation lessons we've learned in campus and in school I've already applied. Huge success. I said, okay, tell me. He says, I go to Calcutta. I paint my kitchenette in red and white. I said, why? He says, haven't you noticed? Bengali women wear a lot of red and white sarees. I said, yeah, makes sense. Plausible connection. He says, simple. So, color segmentation, we talked of Henry Ford Model T. Here it is, I've applied it. I said, sensible. I said, then he says, I go to the south and I make a kitchenette in steel. I said, why? He said, the South Indian mommy thinks that anything in steel is good. Yeah, I can see it. So, segmentation by material. Fantastic. I said, yeah, Jimmy, I get it. Segmentation by color for Calcutta, segmentation by material for South. Fantastic. Then he says, I go to Bombay. I make the kitchenette half the size. I said, why? He says, because Bombay houses are so small. So I make them a mini kitchenette. Then he says, segmentation by size. Remember, we learned it in marketing? I said, yeah. Then I said, okay, you've done Calcutta for me, which is color. You've done Chennai for me, which is material. You've done Bombay for me, which is size. I said, how about Delhi? He said, that's the simplest of all, Shiv. I said, what do you mean? He says, I don't need a product. I said, what do you mean? He says, I go and tell Mrs. Chopra, Mrs. Bhatia has one. That's all. Going back to the fundamental question, you really have to think about the kitchenette example is a true story. While the kitchenette is the same, see his imagination and creativity in saying, I can make the same kitchenette differently for different audiences. That is insighting. That's really understanding, the power of consumers and their relation to the category. Yeah.
Hi Shiv, this is Sudhir. I'm from the General Management Program. My question to you is that everything you said about brands and building brands, I could relate to Nokia, and I thought that somewhere did we forget the product in the brand, because ultimately what led to the sorry state of Nokia today is the product and not the brand.
No, that's what most people say. Okay, please sit down. The challenge with Nokia happened in 2011. We had a new CEO coming in, and Apple had been launched in 2007 with its own operating system called iOS. BlackBerry had its own operating system, and Android was a free operating system. Android is free. Okay, all apps are developed on Android system. Nokia had three operating systems: Symbian, Series 30, Series 40, Symbian. Symbian was the smartphone operating system, and everybody, Samsung, Sony, everybody made phones with the Symbian operating system. When the new iOS came in, the Symbian operating system vis-a-vis the iOS looked outdated. Remember I talked about design and technology and sensory? It looked outdated in terms of its navigation. The iOS was a touch operating system, whereas Symbian was a 12-digit keypad operating system. You still needed to navigate through keys and this. The moment touch happened with icons, more women and children came to the category than ever before. It became fun for them. So in the early days, I used to say, cell phones are a thumb generation. I used to call the teenagers thumb generation. Now I call them the swipe generation, because all you need is to swipe. So Nokia had a fundamental choice to make, to go Android or to go some other operating system. In the wisdom of our board and our CEO, we decided to go Windows. The reason was, we went to Google and told them, we are a very big brand. We have 40% share of the global market. We are very strong in emerging markets. So you must give us an advantage. Any new version of Android you introduce, ice cream sandwich, Kit Kat, whatever it is, okay, they are subnames of Android. Okay, we need 3 to 6 month lead. So both Brin and Page told us, CEO, no way, we won't do it. Okay, while in the initial discussions I was told that they were happy to do it. Okay, finally in Las Vegas, sometime in January of 2011, they said no, we will not do it. We went to Microsoft, and Microsoft said, sure, we will give you all the proprietary and differentiators for the first 3 to 6 months. On top of it, we will put $250 million every quarter to support Windows and Lumia with Nokia, and let's make it a success. That fundamental strategic decision is what changed it. It was not about product. Because why? Nokia's biggest success was its scale. Because you have scale, we got Nokia Music onto it, because the whole music industry wanted to monetize through Nokia. If you have scale like Android, everybody wants to develop apps on Android. Today, Windows has 3.5% share of the global market. Android has 81%. All the apps are developed around Android. There are very few apps developed around Windows. So that strategic choice which was made took us in one direction. And in technology, when you move in that direction, it takes you 5 years to beat. So that's what happened. Nothing more. So in my book, if I were to revisit, what would I do? We had these arguments, and I have been vocal about it. You've seen all my interviews that I've said this. If I would do it, I would do it 2 ways. And this is what I told the chairman when I was leaving in July. I told him I would have done $100 and above Windows, $100 and below I would have done Android. Because the heart of emerging markets, all the countries I ran, the average selling price was about $70. So $100 and below I would have done that. And second, Nokia got bought over by Microsoft. To me, the best fit, the best house for Nokia was actually Apple. It would have met the strategic objectives of both companies. Apple needs growth in emerging markets. Apple cannot dilute its main mother brand and enter $100 phones. Apple would have had 2 brands. Very strong Nokia emerging markets brand a very strong Apple top-end brand, very strong in America, very strong in Europe. All they had to do was run the Apple operating system into the mid-end phones and continue the Series 30, Series 40. That would have been a huge win-win for both companies. If I had to sell Nokia, that's what I would have done. Okay, but it's history. I must tell you that I'm deeply emotional about Nokia. It took me a long time to make up my mind to leave Nokia. It's a fantastic company. It's a wonderful company. It's a brand I loved a lot. It's a brand which made me. Okay, so I always have the deepest affection for Nokia, and I'm sure that one day they'll come back and do it even better. Okay, but that was the strategic direction.
Thank you, sir, for the very informative session. I now request Father George, Dean Admin of XLRI, to present the memento to Shiv. I now call upon Neha Dani of GMT to present the vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to have been asked to deliver the vote of thanks at this prestigious event. I thank our chief guest, Mr. Shivakumar, for taking time out from his busy schedule to come and address us. All our interaction with Mr. Shivakumar, right from the NHRDL conference in Kolkata, where we met for the first time, has told us that MD and CEO aside, he is a teacher at heart. Because only a true teacher would talk about brands by actually giving a demo with a juice box. And it is only a true teacher who would expect answers from the first benchers. We thank you, sir. It has been a phenomenal session and it is bound to stay in our memories for a long, long time to come. Thank you. I would like to thank the director and our esteemed faculty, without whom all our endeavors would not have been possible. I thank the leadership committee of GMP for organizing this session for us. And above all, thank you all for being such an enthusiastic audience. Thank you.
I request you all to be please seated for a while.